We are finally getting a PlayStation showcase. Welcome to PSReady, my channel all about PlayStation. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne, and I went back to the old mic. You guys asked, I delivered. You don't like the stick mic. Not because it looks bad, but because of how it sounds, which is the biggest reason to go back to the original mic. I'm working on getting a better stick mic. I like holding the mic. I'm sorry. It just makes it easier for me to get in the video zone. But in addition to that first story, we're talking about how despite the criticism, State of Play is working, and then we're going to round out the video talking about Days Gone Remastered, because there's some complaints that I want to clear up. But let's get into this first news story here. This is coming from Jeff Grubb. So around this summer, Sony is going to do some sort of announcement stream. They just don't know if it's going to be a showcase or a State of Play at this point in time. They want it to be a showcase, which is the promising news, and I really hope it is a showcase. I've been talking about the PlayStation ecosystem here on YouTube for a few years now, and the best time to do it was when they were doing showcases. The first one before the PS5 came out was excellent. Games like Resident Evil Village, Demon's Souls, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart showed up. They even had Horizon Forbidden West at another one. Then, because of the one that they did in 2023 that was bad, they have not done a showcase since, and they got really close. The State of Play that happened in the summer last year was going to be a showcase, and then right before it actually happened, you can literally see where they cut out the PlayStation Showcase branding and added in a bunch of State of Play stuff. I think that was the right call because the games they announced were mid, and they have not done any kind of showcase since. We've gotten 2 State of Plays since then. We got one at the end of last year where they announced Ghost of Yotei, which I think was decent, like not the best, not the worst. And then we just had one that, depending on your taste, was good to mediocre. Like if you look at Jeff Keighley's little poll he does after all of these events, most people rated it a D, which I feel like was a little harsh. I think it was actually a pretty decent event overall, just not up to my expectations as a Sony gamer since the PS3 heavily. So it's a weird paradox situation we've got going on here where we know Sony is working on games. They've got a lot of studios under their umbrella that are working on first-party games. Unfortunately, Ben Studio and Bluepoint just had their games canceled. Those would have been great to see at a showcase, but they don't exist anymore. So whatever they're working on, they're starting from scratch. And I understand why Sony wouldn't want to show off what they're working on because, you know, it could get canceled like their last game and the studio could get closed, which would suck if we knew about that in their perspective. And then on top of that, we have gotten announcements from the first party studios that are making games that'll actually come out. We've seen Ghost of Yotei, we've seen Intergalactic The Heretic Prophecy, and we've seen Saros from Housemarque, and that basically just leaves whatever Santa Monica studio is working on that isn't God of War. We know there is early development going on with a new God of War, but they've also been working on some sort of space game ever since God of War 2018 came out. I hope that is a PS5 game, because if it's not, that's going to mean a 10-year development cycle, and I don't care how good the game is, I don't care how revolutionary or genre defining the game is, I want games faster than 10 years. It's ridiculous that these studios are taking that long. I understand that game development takes a long time, but there needs to be some sort of innovation, some sort of come to Jesus, some sort of mea culpa where they say we need to figure out how to innovate gameplay without taking 10 years to do it. It's just insane and ridiculous that it's gotten to the point where it's taking that long. So that's the paradox, right? Like we want to see new stuff from the first party studios, but Sony can't really show it because a lot of it is in early development, and there needs to be some sort of middle ground. I don't know if the solution is opening up smaller studios to work on smaller games. I don't know if the solution is Sony cracking the whip and saying, no more of this 7 to 10 year development cycle bullshit. Come up with an idea, stick with it, and make sure you get it done on time. Because at the end of the day, a 7 out of 10 game or an 8 out of 10 game is better than no game at all, and we really need some first-party games. They truly are just a victim of their success. While I'll always be more partial to the PS3 generation and the first-party games we got during that gen, it's hard to argue that the PS4 is where things really exploded and made people see the light in terms of Sony's bar of quality when it comes to their first-party games, and I understand that once you get to that point, you need to keep those people happy to continue having them buy consoles, and to do that, you need to continue to meet the quality bar you set during the generation they came in on. But I think people are hungry for cool experiences, and it doesn't need to be generational games like God of War every single time. Like they have their top tier studios covered with people like Sucker Punch, people like Insomniac, people like Naughty Dog and Santa Monica Studio. I think they need to take a little bit of a page out of Xbox's book, which I can't believe I'm saying, and start either buying or opening studios that can fill that middle plus tier and pad out the release schedule throughout the year. year. I know they're trying to fill that gap with games like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Silent Hill 2 Remake, Rise of the Ronin, Stellar Blade. These games just are a little too big, right? Like they're still going for the same lofty goals that PlayStation sets with its first party games. And I feel like they could find a better middle ground if they had some first party studios that were just smaller and making smaller experiences. The gulf is insane between something like Stray and Intergalactic: The Heretic Prophecy. And I feel like there's a happy middle ground there where you can keep people buying games for lower prices and also not feel like they're missing out by owning a PlayStation 5, while Xbox gamers are getting good stuff like Indiana Jones, Avowed, and everything else. Eventually we will get those games, but there's still a wait. It's not day one. So I understand the frustration from people. I also understand that it's tough for Sony because they just had to cancel 2 games that weren't working, and they've announced games from their other major studios, but the situation can be fixed because they've done it in the past. I think the easiest solution is not do what everyone else is doing and not use Unreal Engine 5. That engine is a mess. It's hard to run on any console, whether it's the Nintendo Switch 2, the Series X, or the PlayStation 5. It's too far ahead, and Epic is constantly rewarded for their lazy work and actually optimizing their engine, which they'll never do. And by the time games start effectively using it, I guarantee you they'll have Unreal Engine 6 out and ready to go, and the cycle will begin anew where they've completely outclassed the consoles that are available, and we'll get more of these games that come out broken and unfinished, which will result in them not selling well because people are sick of it. I really hope we get a showcase. I also hope that what they have to show is worthy of a showcase, and if they have to make the call to downgrade it to a state of play, I'm prepared for another disappointing state of play. It's a weird situation where I know Sony has the capacity to do great stuff because I've lived through it the past 2 generations of this console, but yeah, it's just gonna take time, which, no one wants to hear because we all spent $500 on the original PS5 or $700 on the Pro. And in the meantime, the big win is that the games that are coming out really do look and run pretty damn good on the PlayStation 5 and Pro. I know some people are going to call it cope and say they've got better experiences on whatever console or PC they're playing on, but like when you've got games like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 or Hunt Showdown 1896 or even the smaller stuff like Rise of the Ronin, I mean, there's good stuff out there. You just have to do a little bit more work to find it. And while that does kind of bum me out, when I do find that good game that gets me excited to play on my PlayStation 5, all the bad stuff just kind of melts away. So maybe the solution is to kind of just put in a little bit more legwork to go outside our comfort zones and find some new stuff to play, because that's what I've been doing and it's been working for me. But speaking of showcases versus state of plays, it seems like regardless of the criticism of the state of plays, they are working, because the one that just happened ended up being the biggest concurrently watched state of play ever, with 1.8 million people all watching the same stream at the same time, whether it was on Twitch, YouTube, or anywhere else. And I was sitting back trying to think about why that could be the case, and I came to 2 conclusions. The first one is Xbox is getting out of hardware. I mean, they can say all day long that they're going to continue to make boxes or whatever, but the writing is on the wall. Phil Spencer just changed his title on Twitter from head of Xbox to head of Microsoft Gaming, so that's a big sign that they're becoming a publisher versus a hardware manufacturer, and that they're abandoning the Xbox brand as a whole. And I know that really sucks for a lot of the Xbox creators out there, because yeah, they put a lot of time and energy into being fans of Xbox. They've also given them a lot of money, and if Xbox pulls out of the console ecosystem, there's going to be some crazy stuff that happens, and there's going to be a lot of people whose channels are in jeopardy. But with that being said, I think a lot of people are seeing that writing on the wall, and they're seeing the situation where if they buy a PlayStation 5, they get everything, right? Except for Nintendo first party games. Outside of that, you get Xbox exclusives, you get PlayStation exclusives, and you get every third party game on your console. So I would assume that a lot of the people who bought Xbox Series S's, at the very least, maybe some Series X people, were like, I'll tune into the competition and see what they're announcing, because they probably have plans to either buy a PS5, a PS5 Pro, or eventually a PlayStation 6, and they want to get in on the ecosystem while the getting is good. Another reason I think people are tuning in is because they're hungry. They want to see what the first party is working on. They saw these news stories about canceled games from Bluepoint and Bend, and they've seen that Ghost of Yotei way Intergalactic and Saros are announced, that doesn't leave a lot of players on the board outside of Insomniac or Santa Monica Studio, and they want to see what those studios are working on, and the best place to see that would be the new State of Play. They just need to figure out the messaging, because it's a problem that Nintendo has too with the directs. When I was a huge Switch fan before the Steam Deck came out, because I was getting a lot of third-party stuff on the Switch, I was excited for the Nintendo Directs because there was always day one drops. They would have some sort of first-party stuff to announce there. It was exciting, but as time went on and they started doing less and less of them and showing less and less cool stuff in them, I stopped paying attention, and PlayStation definitely has that same risk with the State of Play format. A lot of the stuff they show in State of Play used to be relegated to the PlayStation blog or the PlayStation YouTube channel, and if you were someone who went out of your way to find it, you could find some cool games, and that worked totally fine for me. They just need someone at Sony who can kind of parse through all this stuff that's coming out and really find the stuff that their audience is looking for. I don't think you need to do all interesting Western developed games, because there is a big fan base for Japanese and anime style games out there, but the prevalence of those games is totally lopsided. So yeah, it's good to see that State of Play is growing. I think it'll grow even more if the game selection improves, and I want to see what the first party is working on. So going back to that first story, I hope what we see in June is a showcase. But that brings me to the third news story, which is about Days Gone Remastered, and it's crazy that there's this much controversy. So we'll start out with the first one, which is that it doesn't look that much better, so why would they do it in the first place? It doesn't look that much better because they're basically taking features that were in the PC release that will run well on the PlayStation 5, and they're including them. So for $10, I think it's worth it to get those features, because as someone who's played this game twice to completion, once on PS5 and once on PC version is simply better. It runs better, it looks better, it has more features. I want those features on PlayStation 5. That justifies the $10 upgrade for me. Also, a big thing that people don't talk about is when a game is in pre-production, which is what's happening at Bend Studio right now, because they just canceled their game that was in production, there's a lot of people who have nothing to do. So doing these remasters gives them something to do and continue being paid, so that they don't lose those talented people. So when the game does go into full production, the next game that they're working on, they have people at the ready, and they don't have to hire a bunch of people and get them up to speed, which prolongs the overall development time. So in the meantime, they have something to work on, and then when they need to work on the big game, they're ready, and then the game takes less long to make. So that's good. So while it might not look better in screenshots or the trailer they showed, because it was mostly cutscenes, if you actually see the improvements in gameplay, which are draw distance, which is huge, and overall frame times, and just better clarity overall as a whole, it is a better release, and it's worth the $10 upgrade. But speaking of that, that's the other controversy. So if you're a new PlayStation 5 gamer, when this thing came out, they had a thing called the PlayStation Plus Collection, which had a bunch of free games in it that you could just download and add to your account, and they'd stay in there as long as you were subscribed to PlayStation Plus, and that included Days Gone. They've come out and said that that $10 upgrade does not work for that version of the game that people got for free with the purchase of their PlayStation 5. You'll have to buy it for $50. And if you've never played the game, I think it's definitely worth buying for $50. And I just genuinely can't get mad about this. Like, I supported the game day one. I bought it on PS4 for $60. I bought it on PC for $50 when it came out. That's the price that they're charging on PlayStation 5. So there's no $10 discount for Steam users, which is great. And I get the complaints from some people who are like, I have the game in my account, I should get the $10 upgrade. But on the other hand, you never bought the game. You got it as a bonus with your PlayStation 5, and they were clear up front that that only works if you're subscribed to PlayStation Plus. And if you add in the $10 upgrade, that really complicates it, because what happens if you lapse your PlayStation Plus? Do you get to keep the remastered version? Do they take it away? They probably can't legally do that because they sold you an upgrade for that free game. It's probably just more trouble than it's worth for them. And I'd argue that there's a lot more people out there who just added it to their account because it was in the PlayStation Plus collection and never played it than there are people who added it to their account and played it. So if you never played the game, you probably weren't going to play the remaster in the first place. But if you do get the itch to play it, which you should because it's excellent, just pay the $50 because it's a new PS5 game that looks and runs better. And now you're on par with the PC release on a $500 console, which is excellent. I'm sure I'll catch hate for that in the comments, but like, I don't really care. Honestly, there are so many bigger problems to me, like games coming out unfinished, games doing nothing innovative or new, every game using Unreal Engine 5, even though sucks 99% of the time. Games taking 2 years to actually be releasable and playable, even though a lot of people buy them day one for $70. Games costing $100, even though they're paywalling content that's ready to go at launch, like Civ 7, which is a mess. So when I see people bitching that they can't get a $10 upgrade for a game they never paid for, I can't even pretend to be mad about that. I'm sorry. My big hope for Days Gone Remastered is that it does well enough to get a sequel made, because that's what Ben's studio should have been making in the first place. Whoever made the call not to greenlight that sequel when it was Sony's fault that game didn't sell well to begin with is wrong, and I hope they're no longer working at Sony. That is the attitude that put them in this bad situation they're in, where they have first-party studios that are going to miss an entire generation, and those are the people who I have no problem saying shouldn't have a job at Sony. Anyway, guys, sorry for the longer video. If you liked it, you're welcome for the longer video. Leave me some comments down below. Let me know what you're playing. Let me know how you're doing. I know stuff's rough out there for a lot of people, so if you just want to bitch, it's an open forum. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.